basically, like I said on the other show, we our daughter got caught up in opiates after a car accident.
Yep.
So that kind of she kind of ended up spiraling downhill afterwards. We have the story on our website afterwards. You can see a little video of her and everything else. She wasn't the
Cool.
average, I guess, person that would actually follow the drugs. He would seem,
Right.
but she ended up, I guess, that one time just you know hitting a bad batch, and that was it. And the toughest thing for me is being a firefighter. I see it every day, and I always tell myself, how can I bring these other people back, and why didn't she come back?
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing. But what the one thing that we did start is we started the nonprofit. We're not sure whether we're going to flip it to a for-profit as of yet. We started it about a year ago, and the reason why we started it was actually her idea, because
Wow.
because she was when she was in rehab, she'd come out and she would tell us and go, listen, I'm more high in rehab than outside of rehab, so something's got to be different and change something. And so we said, well, what do you think should we change? She goes, well, when you come out of rehab, you feel, I'm sure you can relate to this. I feel uncomfortable. But when I go back into rehab, everybody knows my name. I feel good. I feel, we need to find some way that when they come out, they have a purpose. They
Yeah.
they have something to do. They feel not uncomfortable when they're out instead of being comfortable when they're in. So that's how we came up with the whole
Well, they feel
promises thing.
uncomfortable, I think, interacting with society. She was one of
Well,
those
yeah.
really beautiful girls that, she had tons of guys that would just buy her things. She came from a good, wealthy family.
Yeah.
I mean, we did very well. So she never grew up. She grew up in a great area. She always did, but she went the wrong direction. My other daughter went the other direction, two different kinds of friends. But for some reason,
Well,
Lauren was the leader and everybody wanted to be like Lauren. So when they
yeah.
had issues,
Did you
they would
see
go
the
to her.
evolution of friends as she started to abuse?
Semi.
Or so how
Yeah,
long? So once she kind of started after the car accident, how long did she use, or was it just a short time, a bad batch, and then?
I noticed in the beginning that there might have been an issue, and I took her to see somebody, which was a waste of time because there could have been an underlying issue anyway somewhere with her.
There always
And
is.
yeah, there always is. It starts somewhere. And I remember the first time we found this kid, she was 13, 14 years old, and they would all meet on a Saturday night. I drop them off, her friends, and pick them up at 10 o'clock, and couldn't find Lauren. And Lauren was face down somewhere because she drank too much.
Jeez.
So that was the first inclination something wasn't right. Okay, so we kind of monitor. She was one of those kids that was extremely street smart. She could figure out stuff. If I said, Lauren, something's wrong with my phone, she'd take my phone and in 2 minutes, here, mom, it's good.
Yeah.
But she was just, if she
probably
used
not
it the
more
right
street
way,
smart than book smart. I'm
totally.
guessing. But I can't hear the book thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, she was just like one of those kids that was not going to follow the protocol of everybody else, which okay, fine. I kind of like that. But she ended up with the wrong group of people. She met a guy, same situation. She didn't know it in the beginning, but he was doing heroin. She was in a car accident with him, so to speak. He was a big financial guy, made a lot of money.
Wow.
Bought her stuff. She'd pull up in my drive. Oh, mom, look what Mike bought me. Just bought me a brand new Lexus. Yeah, well, good, Lauren. But, you need to kind of figure out what quality of life is here. And you might have to work someday to get what you want, because this isn't going to last forever here with it. So he ended up going to federal prison.
Wow.
Yeah. So, which fine, she hung in there, but she, along the way, I noticed after this accident, being in a lot of pain, she would take like a quarter of some kind of like a pain pill. Fine. But then it got to the point where it stemmed into the fact with the relationship situation and the situation she saw her friends dying from overdoses that she grew up with. She grew up in a very affluent, like Parkland, Florida. So and these kids they just had better drugs. So the point was they're dying. And that got to her. And all her friends would come to her and try to help her, want to talk to Lauren. And she's always there to help other people. That's why she wanted promises, because she saw this as a downhill spiral. And I don't want to see the rest of these people go right downhill.
Exactly. Well, let's do this. I mean, this is great content, great stuff. So I apologize. What was your name?
I'm Pam.
Pam. So it's Gary Pam. So let's just kind of go. I'll kind of just ask you a couple of questions to get rolling. Let's just call it and see where we go. Just see where we go.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Hey, well, welcome to Life After Addiction Indictment. This is your host, Steve Cloward. Today, I've got two great guests. Friend of mine that I've met in a group that I'm working in, and his wife, Gary, Roberts, and Pam. They have dealt, Gary's a firefighter, and firsthand have dealt with the devastation that addiction can bring. It actually chokes me up to say that. And I'm going to let them go into what that means, but they had a daughter that it affected deeply. And so I just want to welcome you guys to the show and appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank
Glad
you.
to be here.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, so tell me a little bit about your daughter and kind of the type of person she was and kind of what led her down the path to addiction, to start abusing, and kind of what took place. And
Go ahead.
Well, I think the main thing with Lauren was she was always a strong kid, but she always wanted things to be her way. And a lot of things emotionally got to her. So she put herself sometimes in situations that she needed to get herself out of, which she did, but it caused a lot of turmoil in her life. She would try to help other people, and in essence was knocking herself down trying to help others.
so was she more like a people pleaser, like trying to help everyone else and
Yes.
forgetting about herself, right?
Totally.
I can
Yeah,
relate
In a
to
way,
that.
she was very into herself. So she was a beautiful girl. She wasn't
Yeah.
the typical person you'd think, oh yeah, she's done. No, she would take care of herself, did everything holistically. She ate well.
Wow.
She just got wrapped up in the
Well,
wrong.
that shows you. I mean, I come from a very upper middle class family. It just shows you nobody's immune
Not at
to
all.
the disease. I mean, it is a disease, and
Not at
so
all.
obviously it sounds like same. People that you would never think. I mean, I would have never thought I'd have gone down that path.
Of course not.
But
No, you don't. And I don't think she did either.
oh, I'm sure not. Yeah.
That was the thing with her. And, after she was in this car accident and she was pretty messed up, her neck, her back.
Uh-huh.
Even at that point, she was not getting into the point of saying, okay, I'm going to take a lot of opiates to correct to feel better. She didn't go there. So what ended up happening, she as it went down, she met people, more people. She met this one guy. Of course, they were very close together and gave her everything. And he ended up her realizing he's a heroin addict. I mean, he did very well financially, but some people function very well. being
Yeah, I
high.
was very
I
functional.
mean, and she didn't realize that, and it made her mad constantly that he was like that. But she loved him because he gave her everything. And honestly, he was a very good person.
Yep.
It just, for years, this guy was wrapped up in this kind of situation.
I think also his him giving her everything. We talked a
Yes.
little bit further about how she was in and out when she was out of rehab and how she felt. It took away her sense of purpose, and that's what she said when she got out of rehab.
Yep.
People that get out, they don't feel that they still have that sense of purpose as like they felt when they were in rehab, because like I said, everybody knows them, everybody knows their name. They're like, hey, cool, she's the good girl that does this, she'll help you with that, she'll so it gave her that sense of purpose when she was in rehab. And then as soon as she got removed from that, there was no other sense of purpose, and she went back to
Right.
the boyfriend, and the boyfriend kept handing stuff to her and
Right.
Taking that sense away, which we felt as we started studying more and more about how CBD could help that type of thing, because we also have a CBD company. We noticed that an anandamide complex in the brain that helps bring that bliss stuff and that sense of accomplishment, that sense of joy,
Yeah.
was something that a lot of the addicts were looking for, and they can only find it in the group, their own group.
That's why I actually ended up abusing. I had Crohn's disease, got a small bowel resection, and
Wow.
started taking opiates. And, I was kind of always a flatline kind of person, not real high, not low. And they metabolize different for me. They don't make me drowsy. They make me, let's go, and I'm productive.
Yeah, that's
and,
her too.
And so that's typically what's happening. And so then I was, using it because I felt better. And, I was a little more outgoing, a little more comfortable because I have a little social anxiety. And that's what took me down that road, and it's, I did that dance to the devil for 14 years, and it is just,
Wow.
it's hell,
It is, it's hell.
Yeah, it's tough to see them struggle. I started noticing, she noticed first, I started noticing a little bit later on as a firefighter. I started seeing more and more overdoses and how they started getting into it. So when I started hearing that, she's like, kept calling like, oh, I'm gonna go out to dinner with mom, and then she would call like, I'm sick.
Right.
Like, you're sick
There was
again.
always a reason.
You're sick again.
Yeah.
How do you just You were sick 2 days ago.
This time of year, it's, what is it, the 22nd of December, Christmas around the corner. You say that and it
Exactly.
really hits me because, we would always go to my in-laws, in the afternoon for lunch and stuff. And I can't tell you how many times my wife made excuses for me, or I went in the back bedroom and went to sleep. And it is, we become
You're
very
always
good
trying to-
manipulators and liars
And you
too.
really don't want to be that in that situation. You want to
Absolutely.
be with you in your back of your mind. You're saying, I really want to be with my family. And she did, she was like that. And the one night I'll never forget, her sister ended up being the good girl, 4.5 GPA, the whole 9 yards. So I think
Wow.
that played a lot of it because they were only a year apart. So she would go to school and Ashley's in all gifted advanced classes. And then the teacher would go, oh, you're Ashley's sister.
Yeah. See,
So Lauren was always not
Yep.
the somebody she wanted to be.
So
So she battled for that. And in essence, she battled and she made it, but she made it with the wrong group of people.
right.
She was a leader with the wrong group of people. So,
Yep.
but she would always find an excuse. Like she'd say, Mom, are you going to make this for Christmas? Yes, I am. Okay, good. I can't wait. And then wouldn't be there.
Yep.
So then I knew we're having a lot of issues.
Isolation kicks in and you just,
Totally. Yeah.
but
and she didn't
one
feel
thing,
comfortable anymore.
right.
around
That's exactly
normal
right. Because
people.
you're worried
she
about
felt-
them noticing and but that's the thing, that people that aren't addicts or haven't studied or been into it deep like you guys, they don't understand. What happens is the brain chemistry totally changes.
Totally.
I mean, I was choosing my wife and my son and a newborn son, and I was choosing pills over them. And I mean, by the grace of God, I'm still married,
definitely.
but had I had a good attorney, I always joke, I would have been divorced.
Right.
And so it's crazy when that's another thing, that movie 28 Days, when they talk about the fog lifting, it lifts. Because when it lifted on me, we had built our first house and I was standing alone. My wife's living at her parents' and I had the flu and I was sitting there and I'm telling you, it lifted and I'm going, holy hell, what am I doing?
Wow.
Like, what am I choosing? My wife's a nurse. She worked at the physician's office that I had gone to since I was a little kid. He was good friends with my dad and also her peers I knew and there. And so I was too embarrassed to call because this was back in the day where as an independent office, she could bring an antibiotic shot home,
Right.
And so she's at her parents'. I'm now going, I'm crapping my pants going, what in the hell am I doing? And I don't want to call to talk to her because if her parents answer, this was probably in 1989. No, excuse me, it would have been 92 because we got married in 90. And so nobody is packing a cell phone, not very many people.
No.
But she had a Ford Explorer and we had one mounted in that car. And so it's a Sunday night at 7 p.m. and I dialed that number. And what are the chances of her being in that car, And she was.
Right.
Amazing.
And I just told her, I don't know why I'm calling. I'm sick. Yeah, I do need a shot, but also here's what's been going on. She didn't even know at that point.
Wow. No
So
kidding.
there's a lot of things that happen that, I'm very, very blessed. And like you guys said, your daughter, or that guy she was hanging with was functioning addict. I was very functional.
So was he. Yeah, he was very
But you're still hurting those
You are.
that you love the most, because like you said, the isolation, letting them down and just all sorts of stuff. So Gary is, as a firefighter, you're obviously seeing a lot of stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let's back up. So your daughter's, now into it, she's addicted. So did she stay with pills? Did she move to heroin?
Well,
Or you don't
in other
know?
words, he went to federal prison.
Okay.
So what ended up happening was he says, Lauren, I don't know what to say to you, but just you need to do what you got to do. She was miserable without him, but she knew that he wasn't good for her.
Yeah.
And she moved on to somebody else. Unfortunately, the other guy did heroin that she didn't know about. And it was the first time in her life. And she always said, I'd never put a needle in my arm. She did.
And was that it?
And you know what it is too?
Oh,
She was living in such turmoil mentally, trying to function in society normally,
100%.
that it was beating her up.
Absolutely.
She was trying to cover up so much.
It didn't help either, knowing that I was a firefighter dealing with it. So she knew that if she came around me high or something else, that I would probably catch on a lot faster than the average person. So that played on her mentally also. So that's probably another reason why she really tried to stay away from when I was home and would always come to see Mom when I'm not home.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Because I see it all the time. I'm like, we're one of the busiest cities in the nation. And
Really?
we're on average 1 to 2 overdoses a shift. So every third
Really?
day, we're bringing somebody back of some sort of
Yeah, it's
something,
bad.
especially now with the COVID and everything else.
Oh, it's gotta been crazy. That's
Crazy.
anyway. Don't
But
Yeah.
one thing about
don't want to go
Lauren,
down that rabbit hole.
yeah, really.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah, no. One thing about Lauren, though, she always had a big heart.
Yes.
You know, Lauren was the kind of kid that my other daughter's great, smart, good girl, but
Yeah.
we'd be at the mall together or something, and I'd grab both their hands, and my daughter, that's the smart one, she'd go, "Mom, not in the mall," and Lauren would go, "I got you, Mom." But she'd be like that with her friends too. She'd always be there for them. So she's
Wow.
trying to maintain. A lot of them didn't know she was even doing anything.
Yeah.
Because she looks, they'd always say, she's so beautiful. So to maintain the way she looks, she's battling that entity, because she always wanted to, she had this thing about appearance. She thought if she looked good, she's not going to look like she did heroin.
Right.
Then she'd turn around and be miserable and shoot heroin.
Yep.
So, you know, it's a catch-22.
It got to the point, it sounds like to me that guilt is just what kept her going, because
Oh.
she knew that wasn't her, but I guarantee you I mean,
Yeah, it was
she
tough.
didn't, I guarantee you she wanted to get out. She was just like, you feel helpless.
So bad.
Like
Yeah,
I used
she
to drive to
wanted
work
so
crying
bad.
just because I didn't know, it wasn't talked about when I was going through mine for the most part,
No.
I didn't even know what AA or NA was. And frankly, that's what really helped me once I did get sober.
Did it help you?
and-
Good.
Oh yeah. And that's what is really cool. I didn't go to NA because I always heard stories about,
Yeah, so
you'll
did
find
she.
more people using and stuff.
Right.
But, I come from a background, LDS Mormon and real Orthodox parents and in-laws, and why is it, I'm not really picking on the church, but I'm going to say it how it is.
Mhm.
Why is it that there's so much judgment,
Yeah.
rather than, I feel like everyone should have a sign. It goes to any church, in my opinion. Hey, I fucked up all week. I'm here to
Right.
be forgiven, kind of a thing. Cause we're all, none of us are perfect, but there feels like so much judgment. But you go to an AA meeting and you got people from every walk of life
Mhm.
who, number one, most likely we wouldn't run into or be in the same circles and associate, but none of that matters. It's so cute. I mean, it's beautiful.
Is
And
it?
the people that do, relapse and then come back, everybody is so happy,
Right.
it's not that judgment that, you see, which I, believe people do that because they're really
Yeah,
kind of
they do.
pointing at themselves, but
Yeah, they are.
because we all have our stuff and there's no sense in being fake. And that's what I appreciate you guys. It can't be easy to talk about, but being open and honest about it is really where we can all make a bigger impact.
We can.
And
I
so
agree with that.
Tell me about some of the stuff you guys are thinking of doing with a nonprofit a little bit.
Well, go ahead.
So yes, our daughter decided, like we said, she has a big heart, tried to help people. Her last stint coming out of rehab, she said, listen, we really need to change the way this is going, especially down in Florida. I don't know if you heard all over the news, there is patient brokering.
Absolutely. Big doctors.
So she's like, this is just ridiculous. As soon as we get out, they send us somewhere and there's a person in there that's supposed to watch us, but they're selling stuff to make us go back so that the rehabs can make more money. This is just one big circle. We need to figure out how to fix this. And she goes, we looked at it and says, well, we're not judging anybody because these are average, normal people, just like our daughter.
And some are smarter than the
some-
average person. A lot
Oh
of them.
yeah, no
I
doubt.
mean, it's
Our
amazing.
big business owners, they're like you said,
Yeah,
kind
they're
of,
amazing.
our
Nobody's
functioning people.
immune. Yep.
Yeah. So we said, well, let's how can we change it? We said, well, if we turn it into a nonprofit, we wouldn't be brokering patients. We would actually be helping people that actually wanted to be helped. Whether we were able to actually bill their insurance or not, they would still get the help. And on that foundation, we built a protocol. At the same time, we also started a CBD company. And I was researching CBD for myself and came into it at the same time as her and seeing how it could help her. And before we could actually get it out
To her.
that's when she passed away. But we did more research on it. And we said, well, why don't we combine our CBD company with our nonprofit, use that as a protocol to help them. It'll help with the anxiety of going out of rehab or being in rehab. B, it'll help with the nauseousness of coming off anything else. And C, it'll help make them feel happier so that they can be more functional and more inept to actually do something.
Yeah.
From there, we decided, well, how do we stop them from coming back? My wife goes, well, why don't we just build some sort of like vocational aspect of it. In other words, train them how to either answer phones, make sales calls, be managers, and kind of at the same time as
Vocational
Love it.
program.
kind-
Yeah,
instead of
give
like
them some purpose.
Yeah, we need them to
Give 'em
function in
yeah,
society.
exactly.
Because they need to get doing something. That's the worst
Yes.
thing is the idle mind is that's what
Exactly.
killed
So
me.
instead of the whole, we said instead of the whole, we did a modified 12-step thing. Instead of sitting around and saying we're going to do something, we're actually going to make them do something. So then we said, well, let's start with once they start getting better, let's put them into like little fitness groups. I own a CrossFit gym as well, and the one thing that CrossFit, everybody says, oh, it's too hard, it's too hard. But the one thing it did teach you is that no matter what, you're going to finish the workout or do it at your pace, but everybody around is going to cheer you on
Yep.
because
Like a
they
community.
want to help you. So you build that community.
That's huge. Yep.
And we said, well, let's test it out. So we had two addicts come in, and we said, just join the group for free, just to see what happens.
They
And
were
then-
nervous.
they were nervous.
I'll bet.
These people have never worked out in their life. They all, anybody who walks into a CrossFit gym for the first time is like,
It's intimidating. Yeah.
it's intimidating. So we said, don't worry about it. Just I'll take care of you. And we coached them, and slowly you saw them in the beginning, they would stay in their corner and everybody else would work out, and slowly they'd walk in and somebody goes, hey, how's it going, Jim? They look over like, hey, how are you?
That's
And then the next day, like 2 people would say, how you doing, Jim? And then 3 people, and then 4 people, and then during the workout, they would like, hey, Jim, try it this way. Keep going, Jim, you're doing good. And by the 4th or 6th week, they're all interacting with these doctors, physicians, attorneys. Nobody knew who these people were. We didn't
That's
tell them
powerful.
they're addicts,
Wow.
nothing. And all of a sudden now they completely have this whole a different entourage instead of a rehab entourage, but a successful business oriented entourage. So we said, okay, well, throw that into our
That's
nonprofit.
powerful, man.
So now we got the fitness aspect. We're going to make them feel better inside so that they can feel better.
Well, that's what that community's doing, because we all have so much shame
I
and
know.
guilt for what
That's
we've
what it
done
is.
and put people through.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge piece from at least the way I see it is building that confidence and self-worth back, when other
Yes.
people are showing an interest, that's huge.
Well, that's what happened. So they feel like now instead of
Wow.
and those 2 people are still doing extremely well due to the fact that they figured out that they don't need to go back to the people, and I hate that word, addicts.
Yeah.
They can now be with society and normal people, doctors, lawyers, and
Yeah.
function and be happy. So that made a huge difference.
is
And then
cool.
we picked the name Promises because Lauren and I had always had this, she picked it actually, because she always had this thing where she would make me pinky swear, like, Mom,
Yeah.
promise me. And then I asked her, Lauren, what do you want to call the rehab? She goes, Mom, Promises. So our logo is a hand with 2.
That is
Yes.
really
So
cool.
she says, I don't want anybody to ever go through what I've been through. That's what she
Wow.
said. Yeah, she was.
And that's the way I feel. I mean, I literally said addiction is something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
Me either. I
it's
can't
just-
even imagine.
it
What
is, it's
she
just
went through,
brutal.
I can't even, and you, I wouldn't even imagine.
has such a grip that it's just hard.
Oh,
People that aren't addicts, it doesn't make sense, honestly.
no,
It just doesn't.
And she always said to me, she always says, Mom, I love you more than anything, and I'm sorry. She goes, but I need to stop this. She even asked, like, it was funny. She would ask me on occasion, like, she'd look at Gary and say, Gary, what does it feel like to die? Like, she was wondering, like, is there a better place? And she was saved. She did do the whole Christian thing and went through the whole, and she thought that she was wondering. And Gary says, Lauren, close your eyes. And that was like,
Wow.
I don't know what else to tell you, but
Yeah.
this is where you don't want to go, and then we had her out of things for a while. She was good for 6, 7 months, 8 months, sometimes a year and a half. And boom, something would hit her, something could have happened. And
Well, it's like they say as an addict, and I've witnessed this myself firsthand, is if you're sober and you have thoughts or temptations, but don't have anything available, you're
Exactly.
probably going to be safe. If something's available and you're in a good place, you're probably going to safe. But
absolutely.
if those 2 things happen at the same time, you are screwed,
You are, definitely.
and it is just, it's terrible. And it's a huge problem.
It's a terrible way to live. It's
It's a huge problem.
It's a huge
And
problem.
it's not only like with our daughter and people like you. I know even firefighters right now that's the other reason why we opened the CBD company. Found out we're helping firefighters with PTSD and depression as well. because we're finding our sleep issues cause us to have more panic issues. And like I said, we're seeing stuff that mostly even military people don't see over their tours. You know, they got tours that last 4-6 years and they come home. You're talking about seeing death and mayhem for 30 years, every third day guaranteed. So
That's just crazy.
They're taking sleeping pills. They're going out drinking.
Yep.
They're you know, all this stuff to try and forget stuff or stop the voices and you know all this. So this is what
Just
we
making them vulnerable to the same problems, you know.
exactly.
You know, whether it's using sleeping pills or anything else, it's all the mass pain of some
think
sort.
the last 3 years, I think in our department only, we had I think 3 or 4 suicides, firefighters that gave up and said because they had nowhere, you know. And so we're trying to help that. We're trying to combine both the CBD company and the nonprofit together to try to help as many people as we can.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about that too. And when you said that the other day, that's what piqued my interest. Plus, you know, when you mentioned about your nonprofit and the purpose behind it, I was like, damn, he's talking right to me, you know, because I have terrible sleep, you know.
Do you?
Oh, terrible.
Still?
In fact, when I went into federal prison in July 1st of 2009, and I had been on clonazepam for sleep originally. And anyway, long story short, you know, I didn't learn this till after I'm in prison and sicker than a son of a bitch.
Really?
They had me on, you're supposed to be on that max like 3 months at a time. Yeah. I was on that for 9 friggin' years.
Wow.
I was so sick in there, man.
Oh, what a shame.
Oh, 6, I couldn't get out of my rack, go walk to the chow line and stand in line. I would end up right back to my bed. I was so weak. You know, I lost 27 pounds in the first 6 weeks. I was living on just oatmeal that I'd make in the microwave, you know.
That's
but
sad.
It is. And that,
so
you know,
now to this day, you're still having issues sleeping.
Well, it's not. Back then, the reason they prescribed it was because, you know, I was going 1,000,000 miles an hour. I had a bunch of businesses. And it's like, if I woke up, I couldn't shut my brain down.
Right, exactly.
But I don't find that's the issue. I just wake up, you know, I don't know. You know, I can get back to sleep. I'm not too bad. I get back to sleep most of the time. I did the sleep study test, you know, and I do have a CPAP, but that hasn't really made a big difference. Like my brother has it for years and years, and it changed everything for him. But so I'm still fighting it. And anyway, so yeah, we should talk sometime, and maybe I should try some stuff there and see, you know, that could help me. Because I mean, because, you know, as a business owner and entrepreneur, I mean, sleep's the most important thing. I mean, because I'm by 5 or 6. I'm so mentally, I'm starting to get physically tired too, but mentally I'm just shot because, you know, even though I've got more stuff I want to do, and it's just like, you know, so
get to that point. I'm like that in a lot of ways. I'm very OC, I'm like ADD and I'm type A personality. So it's like, you know, I'm always thinking constantly. And we're going to send you some of our, you're going to love it. I mean, this is the first thing, honestly, because I'd wake up like all night.
Wow. So how long have you guys been in that business?
3-4 years.
3-4 years. Like I started it looking for me since I did a bunch of CrossFit stuff and I was competing. I was a high level and master athlete. I was like,
dang,
top 100 for 3 years in a row. And I started getting more and more inflammation. So I said, well, let's find out. I heard this thing about cannabis. Actually, to be honest, I thought about when they started legalizing cannabis, I'm like, this is a great way to get into it and make some money. Let's see. And then I figured out that, you know, that's way too expensive for me. But they did, they did like a couple of $1 million bond and this.
Like, plus I got major, you know, health issues. I have 2 bad knees. I need a replacement. I got a shoulder MRI 2 weeks ago. And so, you know, luckily I don't, you know, I feel like I'm very mentally healthy. So like addiction's not, you know, I'm not naive enough to think it could never happen, but I also speak about it. I never say I'm a recovering addict.
Good.
Because I don't believe that wording is too powerful to affect your subconscious, you know. So I was an addict, but I'm recovered. I'm, you know, they're 2 separate things. And I don't like hearing, you know, there's some truth to it, but I don't like it when they're in rehab or anytime when they say, you know, relapse is part of recovery, because that's giving you a green light.
It is.
You know?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Just, the power of the mind is so amazing that we don't understand, you know, it
enough about it.
Power is so powerful.
It is.
And so if we can work on rewiring it, you know, plus a lot of things you've talked about. I think those are things that could go really hand in hand to really helping people dealing with addiction, you know?
Definitely. And the fitness aspect is one of the
Huge.
highest ones, huge out there. Cause like
They
I
always
said,
told me that, you know, even if you're just walking on a trail, you got to get those endorphins firing
You
because,
really do.
you know, they're all just covered up, you know, so you don't even have the endorphins
Well,
moving.
that's the two things. The anandamide is also created by pleasure, which exercise does. So now add that in with the CBD that actually naturally does that as well. Add those two components right there. It changes completely the whole dynamics of trying to help an addict come out of stuff.
That's huge. Plus, I think working out, you know, that also helps to make you feel better about yourself, you know, the physical piece, but then also mentally,
Right.
you know,
No, it
hey, I
does.
accomplished a workout. I hate working out, but when I go do something, I do feel a lot better,
about it.
you know?
Yeah, you do.
Exactly,
so-
100%.
Well, we also work with a holistic doctor, and we always knew that what happens initially when you're in addiction is the fact that you lose your nutrients in your body. You start depleting yourself. That's also plays on your head. You feel lousy.
Yep.
So we're in our recovery center. We introduce a nutritional program, IV therapy with all supplementation. And then the CBD, we have a supplementation that can incorporate the CBD for IV therapy. So what ends up happening is we're jacking them right away with everything powerful and good to get those anandamides working again, and the blissful, that frontal lobe start kicking in exactly where the frontal lobe would kick in if you did drugs. But it's a short term when you do drugs, and it's not a healthy one because you're killing off that frontal lobe cells instead of replenishing it.
Well, and I stayed, you know, I kept using for probably 3 to 4 years after I was like wanting to be done. And I had a situation happen where I was scared straight. I thought I was dying. But that's why we don't quit, is because you feel so shitty.
You feel terrible.
Yeah, I mean, and you can solve it by just taking another pill. I mean, I would feel better as soon as I had possession.
Exactly.
I mean,
So did
it's so mentally, it's huge mental piece to it too.
Well, and you know, a detox, I don't know if off of heroin is definitely painful.
Oh, I watched my brother do it on his own. I put him up in a hotel room so no one would know.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's brutal watching that.
It's brutal. I mean, and I've seen her go through, you know, but then again, when they put you in detox, they give you Suboxone, which is more addictive than heroin.
Yeah.
So it's a catch-22. So we finally found with the CBD that, I mean, it restarts those neurometers in the frontal lobe to where you're getting the same pleasure. Like, let me give you an example. The studies show that if you max dose somebody on CBD for 7 days, you can put them in sobriety for 3 months.
Really?
So now, so now that's
that's like life-changing for millions of people.
It's millions of people. So that's why we wanted to incorporate this. And now that we have all the protocols in place, we're able to implement. Now it's just opening promises.
Yeah, our next step is opening a facility, finding a place to actually do it.
Right.
And speaking of that, it was funny because we decided, like, okay, well, how are we going to keep track of all these businesses working together? And we said, well, let's put it all under one roof.
Right.
There are a lot of synergies.
Imagine this: have a farm where you can actually go and then
we have the farmers and we have
put a facility on it and have them work in the farming industry at the same time as they're getting better, and synergistically teach them how to build a multi-billion-dollar CBD business at the same time, getting all the aspects of either cultivating, doing anything, and synergistically using both companies as one. And so that's what we're looking for right now. We're looking at getting some funding and everything else to try and actually buy the land and build the thing down here in Florida.
Well, that's awesome, man. If there's anything I can do to help out, let me know. Because that's the thing. It's, you know, it's crazy.
You'd be an amazing speaker, because in a nonprofit, you bring in speakers. Motivational. Well, you know how that goes. And instead of they're listening to you because you've been there.
Right.
And it's a matter where it's so important to them to be interacting with people that have been there.
Yeah, that's why a lot of the rehab centers, they have to have people that have recovered and have years of sobriety, because it just doesn't resonate because you just don't understand it. You can't even have it make sense, you know?
No, you can't try to have somebody that's never experienced something like that and then go in there and tell somebody that has and said, you're doing this wrong. They're looking at you like, really?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, do you really know what I've done? You know, but yeah, that's the goal here. That's our next goal.
Man, you guys, that's a hell of a vision. I mean, the way you talked about it all coming together, that's just beautiful to me. I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, That's our end goal, our end vision right now. So we're like I said, we're just trying to look for funding right now to try and get that out.
And
get
then when
more
people leave
stuff
the
going.
recovery, since it's a nonprofit, we want to make them understand that even though they're finished, let's say, because you still can bill insurance, but yet those people that don't have insurance, they're being supplemented by people donating
Right.
and then what happens is when they get finished with their recovery, 90 days, whatever they want to do, be in the fitness part, they're always welcome back.
See,
They
that's
can
cool.
come in, still work out. They could still help do the vocational program. We'll get them a job. We'll make sure that they're ready to be functional in society, not just go, okay, you're done, bye.
Right.
You
That's
know,
what's cool, is because you're integrating all the different things that can be stumbling blocks that make it hard for someone to stay clean at first, you know,
Exactly.
because it's hard,
It's,
you
I
know,
know, believe me.
especially especially if you haven't figured out your reason, you know, and it took me being in federal prison, actually, even though I'd been sober a long time, to really understand my trigger and what was going on.
Good for you.
And
But you had to probably hit rock bottom in order to say.
Oh, I hit rock bottom a couple times, but I just got to the point where I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. Was really with me. Like I said, my business was just crushing it, you know. And I even had a buddy who was renting an office in my building, who was an insurance agent, and I had actually relapsed using Ultraset because it was non-addictive, non-narcotic, you know, and I'd had a vasectomy. And I told I told the doctors, every doctor I had problems. I had my 3-year medallion on my chain, you know, and he still ended up giving my wife, who went through the outpatient piece with me. She's a nurse, so she understands it, but he gave her a prescription of that. And then my mom had rheumatoid arthritis horribly for 35 years. My parents even came to the outpatient stuff, so they got a pretty good grasp. And my brother was an addict too, and we were in business together.
Wow.
That's a whole nother story, but
Interesting.
so she would hide her stuff so it wasn't in the medicine cabinet in the kitchen like it used to always be. And sure enough, one day when I just was feeling kind of crappy, you know, I got through the vasectomy thing, you know, and then I checked her cabinet, you know, just out of curiosity. It wasn't like I was thinking. It's just that brain doing its thing, you know.
Of course.
And there they are. But the positive to that was, after 4 weeks, because of what I'd gone through in rehab and stuff, I just said, whoa, I'm not going down this road. I know where it's going to lead me, you know, but without that, the rehab and being serious about it, I wouldn't have been able to do that, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so it's just brutal. And like I said,
I think what it is I've seen, like, even through her stories, and it's just the recovery system is off.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's not, you're helping some because they really, really want it. But then you have the others that need it desperately, and it's not letting them finish that recovery.
Yeah.
They're a quarter there. And like, even when Lauren would leave recovery, she'd say, oh, Mom, will you pick me up? Yes, of course. So we'd have to stop in the doctor's office, and she just finished a month of being in recovery and detox. And the doctor would say, okay, Lauren, you're ready to go, but here's some Xanax and here's some Adderall for and I'm looking at this guy, seriously, we're giving her more, but that's what happens. And she goes, no, I don't want it. And she'd suffer it out, and she had her moments, and she'd stay clean for a long time, but then boom.
Wow. Well, tell me where people can find your CBD stuff, or, you know, where can people find you guys? And
we got a website called it's PBZ CBD. So
Pure Body Zen CBD.
Pure Body Zen CBD. That's where you can get our CBD stuff. Or even if you just have questions, I tell everybody else, even if you don't purchase from us, we're gonna tell you, you know, if you bought some product and you're not sure if it's actually, you know, the real thing or something, because that's the biggest thing. It's the wild west out there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Every garage in the corner selling something, you know, so unless you get something that's actually real from a real source, it ain't going to work. And you want something that's real, so it does work. So if you have questions, just shoot us an email or call us up. We have a 1-800 number.
I'm going to send you some, so
okay,
you can see, because it's going to help you with your pain, and you know, it helps him tremendously, and he's bone on bone on his knees.
Same here. My left is that. Yeah.
I got both. So
well, my right one's gotten bad because I, you know, favored so bad. It's not bone on bone, but it's causing me problems. You know, I can't even mow the lawn anymore without getting a baker's cyst, you know, on both of them, you know. It's just
Yeah, that's-
Yeah.
miserable.
Yeah, it is.
And I
that's
like
where
to
they
do that.
That's where they can reach us for any questions on CBD. We have a website called promisesrecoverycenters.com. There's a link on there if they want to donate or anything else. They can donate there. They can also see our
Lauren's
Lauren's
story
stories on
is
there
on
and a
there.
little bit more
Oh,
about
cool.
us. So
And I'll put all this stuff in the show notes and so people can see it as well.
Very nice.
So
definitely, and we also started a podcast about. We also started a podcast.
yeah, what's the name of that podcast?
Good Dude to Grow. It's basically we're actually talking about CBD and cannabis, and not only every time we say it, everybody goes, "Oh, it's a show about getting high." No, it's about the medicinal effects and everything else. A lot of people have no idea what hemp can do. There's houses built of hemp. There's shoes built of hemp. Porsche just made a sports car built of hemp. Lotus has a sports car built of hemp.
Really?
And hemp's actually environmentally safe because it takes out all the CO2 carbon. So if you make a lot of more stuff out of hemp, it'll actually help the environment.
Wow.
So we're talking to physicians, athletes, and even entrepreneurs about everything from the billion-dollar industry that's coming up to how athletes have had their lives saved. I was on a call a couple of months ago with Kyle Turley, Jim McMahon of the Chicago
Oh,
Bears.
wow. I know McMahon. He was a BYU player, right where I'm at.
He
He
basically
had some major
he
dementia.
played a full season with a fractured neck, never knew because they kept giving him painkillers.
Yep.
Throughout his season. He said if he had a gun while he was going through it, he probably wouldn't be here now. But since he's been on cannabis, he hasn't touched an opiate or a Tylenol ever since.
That's so powerful.
We're going to bring stories like that on so people can actually decide, are they for it? Are they against it?
It needs to be mainstream. I mean, I believe the best stuff out there is natural stuff. I mean, we need to be utilizing it.
Exactly.
I can't wait to send you some. We're going to send you some of our cream. Ours is so pure that he's tested thousands and been to thousands of farms, and finally we have the source, the farm, and the product's amazing. Because I never believed in any. I never even smoked pot because I was like, I don't like that. I'm more like, okay, I'd rather get high and be up. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
But I just didn't like the feeling of pot at all. So, but honestly, the CBD, it regulates your whole body. It's like from your gastrointestinal tract, your mind, your eyes, it's amazing.
Well, let's be honest. Every medical issue that's out there, underlying causing issue, we'll go a little bit on the COVID side. Every underlying issue, medical condition issue, is an inflammatory issue.
Amen.
Well, every study out there on CBD is how it is guaranteed.
Reduces.
I won't say guarantee because people all call a website and say, "Oh my God, you said guarantee."
Yeah.
All the studies show that it is an anti-inflammatory product. So if you can bring the inflammation down in your body, there is a lot of underlying causes that it can help.
Well, I can tell you, like I said, my mom had rheumatoid for 35 years. She had every surgery you can think of, and she passed a couple of years ago. But knowing what I know now, that's what I'd have had her on, because she was a saint too. Even as her kids, we didn't know really how uncomfortable she was because she just wasn't a complainer. She was, I'm a whiner, man. I'm a baby, but she was tough as nails. The last 6 months or a year, she kind of was more honest, but it's like people shouldn't have to live like that,
Exactly.
They really.
And then she wouldn't jump on the opiates just because of what it made her feel, but what she saw her boys go through,
Exactly.
So,
that's hard. That kind of puts so much stress on somebody, and then the stress brings the inflammation, and
exactly.
to see your kid, and then you're miserable. It's sad.
I'm a big believer that the body, can heal itself if we gave it the attention it needed and could focus the way it needs to. And
that's basically what this vaccine is.
Yeah, exactly.
All it is an immune booster. I'm happy with my immune system. You can keep your vaccine. I'm good.
Right. Oh man. Well, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, I know. That'll get me.
Make sure you give us your info so we can
I'll
send you
shoot
some
you that
product,
stuff.
and we'd love to help you. In any way possible.
I look forward to being in touch and seeing what we can do if I can help out. I'd love to, because that's why I've been trying to go down this path for 5 years. I've been out of prison for 10, but I was broken in between my ears for 8 of that. I had, whether it was, there's a lot of reasons, but I was on top of the mountain. I think there was some things that I was believing that, well, if I have success again, then just gonna lose it. There's a lot of different things.
You always think that. You always, you know what it is?
Yeah.
You're always climbing uphill because you never think something's gonna last long enough.
Yeah.
So you're always fighting to make sure you never lose what you have.
really came down to just, came down 100%, just confidence and feeling like I was worthy. My dad and my grandfather were so well known. It's like I felt like I just totally tarnished the Cloward name in the community. And so there's a lot of stuff going on subconsciously. That's why I just dug in, because I just think I'm just very intrigued with what the mind can do, and how we can rewire it.
Yes,
Exactly.
You can rewire
But
it.
you guys are awesome, man. That's an incredible story, and I sure
We
appreciate
love
your
you part
time.
of our, we love you part of this as far as promises.
I'm in.
we
Just
definitely-
consider whatever that I can do to help that you'd like. Just consider me. I'll give you time, whatever you need.
Very
Because that's the
good.
thing. That's what gets me passionate. And
Me
I've
too.
started, like I said, down this path to try to help people and stuff, but I get sidetracked and it's like, why would I? Like I said, I'll wrap up with this. My wife was a nurse. She treated me, if I ever had an issue, like kind of a piece of shit,
Yeah.
and this isn't a dog on her.
No,
She had been through so much crap that you could hardly blame her. But if somebody came into the doctor's office that had a loved one or, whatever, that was dealing with addiction, and they would call me, it doesn't matter what I was doing. Like, I'm all in. What do I need? Where do I need to go?
That's
Who do I need
nice.
to talk to? Because that's, you can't feel terrible when you're giving back or when you're
Yeah,
helping
you
other
can't.
people,
That's the whole thing of it.
Exactly.
bottom line. And so that's great what you guys are doing. You can help, man, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people.
I
So
can't wait.
I'm in.
Oh,
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay, we'll put the information below in the show notes. Your podcast is launching what, January 4th?
January 4th.
Okay, so go check that out as well. Put that in the show notes and make sure to give a good review, 5-star review for Gary's podcast. And you can find him. I imagine they can find you if you want to message or something on Facebook or something. It's Gary
Always
Roberts.
reachable.
And I'll put your information, like I said, as well. So
Sounds good, Steve.
hope everybody has a
Yes,
Merry
Steve,
Christmas.
I'm
And
so happy for you. I
You
really
too.
am.
thanks, man. I look forward to seeing you in Florida, I hope.
Yeah, definitely.
Anytime.
I'll be
I'll
there.
see you in January. Cool.
Okay. Merry
Have a good
Christmas,
one.
guys.
Merry
You too.
Christmas.
Merry
Okay, take
Christmas.
care.
Thank
All right,
you.
bye.
Bye-bye.